What's up guys, Cody from Motorcycle MD. In this video we'll be learning exactly how to bang shift or power shift your transmission without the clutch like an absolute boss. No, we're not. We're actually just going to look at the symptoms or aftermath of doing so, and how regardless of how good you are at it, this is ultimately what could be happening to the transmission inside your bike. Enjoy! Out of a TRX 450ER. Hopefully you're never having to go into your transmission. If you're starting to experience the issues that we're going to talk about, then it's a major repair. It's the furthest you can go into the motor on a motorcycle as far as a Honda goes. Customer right out the bat was like, I dog this thing. I'm always racing my friends. It shows up in this transmission. He was originally having an issue with third gear. He could shift into first, he could shift into second, but as soon as he went into third, either nothing would happen or it would go in and go right back out again. Shift right back into second. He could, if he could, turn the bike off and go into fourth and it would go into fourth, but that wouldn't matter because how the heck are you gonna start rolling in fourth? So the very first thing that I noticed, and this is typically a very good indicator that he's not shifting properly. He's power shifting without the clutch, really slamming it into gear. Shift drum functions shift forks, right? These shift forks hook up on spots of the transmission, and when you shift, they can slide left to right, back to front. All has to do with this drum. So as this drum turns, and these little paws here, they can kind of sit in their own little gully, and when this spins, bam, it causes the fork to shift left or right, moving gears into other gears to transfer power out. Check out this drum. Completely shattered this vein right here. See how this has a little point to it? This allows, if I wanted to shift, when I would hit my shifter, it would take the fork and it would move it over into a new location like that. So he's banging it into gear and it's hitting that location so hard that it literally just took a chunk out of it. Okay, obviously not a good thing, bad problem to have. That's probably the main reason why he can't go into third right there. It's either getting hung up and caught there, and very rarely he can skip past it and go into a further gear, right? Major thing that I found first, I did find one chunk of metal that was hanging around the bottom of the pan, but that's huge. When I saw this, I said, man, this is gonna get pretty expensive. Alright, because obviously that metal has to go somewhere. The cool thing about the TRX 450R motor is that it is separated inside internally of the case. It is separated transmission and crankshaft. So crankshaft sits here, this is where the cylinder would go, this is where the head would go. So the piston's running up and down inside of here, and this is just spinning on its own oil, separate from the transmission. Okay, see how this is all blocked off here? It's got its own oil, which is good. The crankshaft goes, great. Transmission's still good. Transmission goes, great. The crankshaft's still good. Then I pulled the transmission stuff out, crankshaft out, and started inspecting. First thing I noticed is this fork right here has a little bend in it. See that? Same on the other side. But you can see where here, which means at some point it touched the side of a gear, right? So if that sits there and this slides over, at some point that gear made contact with it, or a piece of debris got caught in there, whatever. Okay, so obvious wear there. I'm looking for wear on the forks here. I'm also looking to see if this changes color at all. If this gets nice and black or blue, it means it's been overheated. One of the major things that transmissions run into when they're beat up excessively are a couple of symptoms. One, it won't go into gear. Two, when you go into gear and power out through the gear, it can come out of gear. Okay, so it goes in, it locks in, and then as you give it power, there's so much strain on the transmission that it can actually just slide itself back out. And when it does that, the forks are sitting inside of the gullies of this barrel, right? And then they're not meant to shift anywhere else because you haven't told it to shift or spin the drum. So if this goes in and then pops back out, guess what? It's gonna bend or start making a lot of noise. Sometimes when they come out of gear, they'll go and then they'll kind of just bounce left and right, back and forth in between the two, because you haven't told the shift drum to move. The shift drum's going to stay put, the forks start bending, and then things get overheated and whine and get really nasty. Alright, so that's another issue that you can run into, is it will come out of gear. So, some obvious signs. If you look at this gear, which I believe is 5th gear, the biggest gear on the this is the counter shaft. You can see where here, you can see that corner right there starting to round, right? See that? It's not a machined flat surface like that is. You can see the wear on top of it. I get that, but that rounded portion on all 3 of them, right? So what's causing that are what we call dogs, these ends that stick out. So when this slides over, it can connect into this pocket and then in essence turn and grab onto that gear. So let's have a look at this one. This would be called a slider gear. See, there's definitely some wear on top of there. Not too much wear on the dogs, but there is some on the very corner. It shouldn't be rounded, right? Because if it's rounded, that's what causes that slipping out. This is that gear that's a different color. You can really see just how rounded that is. Look at that. That side has been banging into this one. Well, not really banging in, but not making a clean shift in. So when this shifts in, bam, if you're not making a clean shift, not just like hitting it and kind of just bouncing it off, you're going full in. That's why transmissions are so loud, because there's this much room that they give it to connect, but when you slide this thing in, sometimes it's going to hit it like this, right? So it's got to wait for it to come back around and then ride back into it. So you would think there'd be a lot more wear on there, but there isn't, you know? It's only when you make bad shifts in and out. The example that I wanted to make to you guys is, if I take this gear, so it's fully in right now. If I take this gear and start to pry them against each other, watch what happens. See that? Just light pressure causes this thing to spin out. I'm not pulling them apart, I'm just twisting them into each other. That's because this rounded joint here is on another rounded joint there. See that wear there? See how it's like cupped up? Not being fully into gear. It's because something bent and caused this gear to sit so close while this is just free spinning. It's making contact with it. You get what I'm saying? That's the only reason really why that would get overheated and machined and cut down, and the inside of that gear will get worn like that. It's not too bad as far as the ramp goes, but it's still pretty bad. This one's still, look at that, just applying pressure, slips it out. If you're all the way in, it doesn't matter. It won't round that corner off, that edge, but when it's just barely in, whack, you miss a shift, that's what happened. Now, these are hardened pieces of metal, right? And they are forgiving. Every time that you miss a shift, bam, like that, and it doesn't go fully into gear or it bounces back out, you haven't ruined your transmission. But I wouldn't do it over and over and over again while you're going 7,000, 8,000 RPM for whatever bike you're on, right? That's when it becomes bad. People can miss shifts all the time, but if the majority of the time you're making a clean shift, then good on you. So he wiped out all of the gears on that. Let's go over to the main shaft. It's gonna be the same thing. So this gear actually got saved. This is the second gear, which is machine splined onto the shaft, so it doesn't need to have a slider put into it, because once it's on the shaft, it's spinning with this main. And this gear right here, first gear, is also made into the shaft. So this is a constant gear, and so is second. So again, wear on that corner. Now if I'm spending 9 hours of my time to go into this motor to find his problem, and his main problem is third gear, but guess what? On every one of these other gears, with just the way that I am, he's either going to replace all of these, or I no longer want to work with the motor. Because if I put third gear back into this bike and all of these issues are apparent, all of them, every one of these gears is junk. Look at that. Rounded edge, where these two come together. Right? Rounded edge. Slips right out. Keep going down the line. If I just replace third gear and I put it all back together and say, all right, man, you're good, and don't replace, I mean, obviously I'd have to replace the drum because that's also a major issue. And then he takes it out and then it starts to getting slammed and popped out of gear in second and in fourth. And all these other gears, guess what? He's gonna come back and say, you messed up my transmission, something's wrong, and I have to go all the way back into it. So either he's gonna do it right, or I'm not gonna do it at all. With debris that broke off from there, that drum sits right there, main shaft sits there, and it all kind of stacks up. There's a bearing here, shot. It feels like there's metal all embedded inside of it. All three of these bearings are worthless. If you've ever felt a bad wheel bearing or a bad ball bearing in general, you'll know what I'm talking about, right? There's metal embedded in all of that, also on the other side of the case that attaches to it. Alright, that's it. Now you can see the internals of what's going on when you're doing certain things. Hopefully try to display that the best way that I could. But when it comes to wear on parts in a motor, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. Some very high mileage bikes can look somewhat similar after many, many miles of abuse. And some don't show any signs at all. Regardless, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel. If you want to deep dive or get actual personal help on your bike to solve problems that you may be running into, check out the Inner Circle membership. We have a private Facebook page as well as hundreds of videos that may not make it onto this YouTube channel as far as deep diving into certain topics of your bike. Or in the meantime, check out the free maintenance course where I show you how to take care of your bike on a consistent basis, what you should be doing. It's super helpful if you're new to the whole riding community, and to have some practical things you can apply instantly is really nice to have. Until next time, Cody from Motorcycle MD, bringing you guys some quality tips and tricks for your next build or your daily rider. I'll see you guys next time. Later!